Broadcasting from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, it's time for IT Help Atlanta. Brought to you by Team Logic IT, your technology advisor. Now, here's your host, Rick Higgins.
And hello, everyone. I am not Rick Higgins. I'm John Ray, sitting in for Rick today, and I'm sitting in for Rick so we can actually talk to Rick, and we're going to put him on the other side of the table today. Rick Higgins.
Hey, John.
Hey. Yeah. Hey, welcome to your own show, pal.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. This is a really interesting thing we're trying to do today, where we're going to talk specifically about cloud computing and the trends in the industry and why the technology is progressing in that fashion and in that manner.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to us doing this so I can learn a few things. But folks, before we get into discussing cloud computing, I just want to remind you that IT Help Atlanta is brought to you by Team Logic IT, your managed services technology advisor, specializing in cybersecurity, cloud, and business continuity solutions. Team IT leverages cutting-edge technology to solve all types of business problems. And go to ithelpatlanta.com for audio archives of both this show and all the rest of the shows in the series, and to learn more about Team Logic IT. So, Rick, thanks again, and thanks for joining us with your expertise on this. So let's talk about the growing cloud computing trends. We hear the word cloud a lot. And why is technology progressing in this direction?
I think that there's a few things that are the main driving forces behind the trend. And this is not in order of priority, but all of it's coming together at this time and place that we are right now here in the year 2020. And one thing is that mobile computing is becoming real important to people, to be untethered from their wired network within their office, to whether they want to work from home or on Wi-Fi in a hotel room or a coffee shop or whatever. That combined with the rapid expansion in internet connection speeds on both hardwired connectivity and Wi-Fi has really increased the demand for this type of computing. And so when you have a mobile device, even though they're extremely powerful, they don't really need to be as powerful with the tool and the power of cloud computing, because most of the computation, most of the heavy lifting associated with the work is happening on a server in a data center somewhere. And that's what the cloud is. So people ask, me all the time, well, what is the cloud? And the simple answer is it's a server in a data center, and that's all it is.
Yeah, and that's really important, because you hear this word cloud and you really don't know. Sometimes, I don't know what that means, and it sounds pretty ethereal, but it's pretty hardwired in a sense. Not hardwired, but it's real technology sitting out there somewhere to be able to access. Correct?
Back in the day, it used to be the computers were all these big giant mainframes. And the way we accessed the computers was through what we called at the time dumb terminals or dummy terminals that didn't really have any memory in the local function. Everything was just to access through hardwired connectivity, access the mainframe. Well, that model is really what we're reverting back to with the cloud, wherein the heavy lifting associated with the servers, which are, the diesel engines of our computing environment. All that computation and the heavy work is happening at the server level, almost all of it.
So, Rick, let's talk about security, because that's really at the top of everyone's mind, or should be, with all the issues that are going on out there. Is the cloud actually more secure than having an on-premises system?
There's no more secure way to compute on this planet than in the cloud. It's absolutely the safest way to compute. When someone who's concerned about their data, someone who's concerned about access to their application or to their internal network. So here's why. So consider a few things. Consider the physical security aspect of a data center itself and compare that to the physical security of your office where you may have an on-premise server. It would be very, very difficult for any CPA firm or engineering firm or any business, quite frankly, services firm or otherwise, to replicate the physical security aspect that is inherent in all data centers right now. I think the last time I was in a data center, I had to have my eyeball scanned, my hand printed on a screen. And this is after I'd already gone through some fingerprinting the previous time that I was there. They also weigh me in an airlock system.
Really?
So I'm in an interim airlock system, and they're weighing me. So I had to tell them that I had to put my briefcase on a special table so that didn't get included in my weight.
Oh, wow.
And so they were making sure I wasn't coming in with some kind of hidden device or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that I had to go through all that before I could physically get into the data center. Then once I got in, I was, reminded of all the multiple levels of redundant power, the electricity that's available, just the backup power, but the redundant feeds that are in there, redundant internet backbone access into that center, so that should there be a major power interruption or for any reason, let's say a tornado, worst case scenario, flood, tornado type of thing, or earthquake, that the system, in particular, the stuff that I was working with, was replicated in another data center in another city. So trying to think about that in terms of security and to try to replicate that in an on-premise server in an office somewhere would be very, very expensive. So cloud computing is expensive, but if your system has to be up and it has to be secure, there's no better way to do it. And the other thing is it's a different way to pay for it too, right? So it's kind of, you pay by the drink or you pay on a monthly basis. So it's part of your P&L as opposed to being something that you're carrying on your balance sheet as an asset that you're depreciating. You're not really buying hardware so much as you're leasing it. So that's true whether you're subscribing to an application or whether you're doing desktop as a service, which is something that we do at Team Logic IT.
So since you're subscribing, you're always up to date because that's what you're subscribing to, right? Is the that's latest right. And the greatest, as opposed to you buy a piece of hardware or software and it continually, I guess, depreciates in its quality or over time, right? I mean, did I get that right?
So the server that, let's just say you're subscribing to an application that's sitting on a server. Well, that server is a physical server in that data center. But the data center engineers are watching that hardware and making sure that they're keeping the memory current, that they're keeping the operating system current, and all the security aspects associated with the operating system are current and up to date. And so they're watching that. And as that hardware ages, they'll replace that. And that replacement will be invisible to you. You'll never have to have somebody coming into your office to say, hey, it's now time to, this server's 3 or 4 years old and needs to be changed out. Well, that's happening real time or in the middle of the night. You'll just never see it. You'll never know. And it'll be invisible to you. And you'll basically just enjoy the continued and increased actual security and the continued and increased capability and performance of the application that you're working with.
Folks, we're chatting with Rick Higgins. He's normally the host of IT Help Atlanta, and I'm John Ray. I'm sitting in for him and getting the chance to talk to Rick about cloud computing. Rick, why is you work with small to medium-sized businesses mostly? Why is cloud computing so important to small and medium-sized businesses particularly?
Well, we've talked about the security aspect, but I think the other thing that's become very relevant in today's time, because here we are, it's July of 2020. We're in the middle of, well, hopefully at the end, but I'll just say we're in the middle of the pandemic, the COVID situation. And the ability to have remote working capability has never become more important.
Mm-hmm.
With folks not being allowed to come back to the office, kind of depending on where they live in the country. I think California has started another shutdown now. Here in Georgia, we are allowed to go back to work, but some companies are still deciding to not let their people come back, or if they do, they can only come back every other day, or in phases and stages. I know my wife's company is doing that. So you still want to get productivity out of your staff. You don't want to have to lay people off, and if you can help it, and you want them to be able to work, well, that means remote working. So there's no better way to do it than cloud computing and providing those capabilities and the security that's inherent with that.
I think you've addressed some of this, but I'm just curious about what other drivers that you see in this trend toward cloud computing. Well,
the thing that I would revisit and that I talked about up front was the internet connectivity speeds.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there's just tons and tons, and I'm talking specifically about Metro Atlanta. And my assumption is that it's similar in every major city in the country, if not the whole world. That there's tons and tons of telecom companies that are just digging up the roads and running fiber everywhere, and they're starting to run it into residential neighborhoods as well. So it's not just in areas that are commercial centric. But I don't know really of too many commercial areas where office space is available, or even industrial space is available, where there's not more than one fiber option for connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that rapid expansion of the connections and the cables and the fibers that are running everywhere, the pricing has come down. So the speed is going up at the same time that the pricing is coming down. What that does for the application developers out there is it allows them to make their software more and more complex, because heavier duty, higher iterations, and heavy computation requirements are still able to run across that increased bandwidth. And then the end user company can afford it because the prices are coming down because of competition. That's what we're seeing in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
I've had clients request pricing on fiber, which is something that we do at Team Logic IT.
Mm-hmm.
And then they, for whatever reason, they put that decision on hold, come back to me 4 to 6 months later and ask for an updated pricing. And we're seeing as much as 25% reductions over that 6 months.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I tell people, I say, look, you need this and go ahead and do this deal, but let's just do a 12-month deal, because chances are this pricing is going to be better in 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been the trend for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm. So let's get specific about how Team Logic IT helps. So, what kind of cloud solutions do you offer and do you work with your clients on?
So almost all of our clients are in at least some kind of hybrid cloud environment. But for full cloud capabilities, we have 2 different options. And the first one is, we just call it a full application server with desktop as a service. And what that means is that client requires some kind of line of business application, whether it's QuickBooks or their customer resource management tool, their CRM, is required to be on a server of some kind. Or it could be an ERP solution if it's a manufacturing site, and it's required to be on a server. And because the software that they're working with is not natively available on cloud yet as a subscription.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll put them on our cloud server, and then we'll create what is in effect dumb terminals for their laptops and desktops to access that. And we call that desktop as a service. All of the computation is occurring at the data center, on the server at the data center. Very, very little local computation occurring on the local machines. The neat thing about that is they can access that from device as simple and benign as their cell phone or a tablet. They can be anywhere in the world. They need to be somewhere in the world. They can't be off planet, right? But it's anywhere in the world. And if they have a web browser with connected connectivity on even just a low bandwidth, a really slow speed. They can get access to their desktop through any browser, and it's very secure. As long as they have their login name, username, and password, they can get in. So it's an extremely powerful tool, and we have, I would say, 3/4 of my cloud clients use this particular tool, and it's full application server with desktop as a service. Our second option, which is not quite as expensive and obviously not as powerful, is what we call the TeamLogic IT Cloud Drive. Mm-hmm. And that is basically for clients that don't have any kind of application, line of business application that's required to be on a server. So everything they do, they're already subscribing to cloud solutions for their line of business software. They're using QuickBooks Online, for instance, or something along those lines. And if they don't have the need to have their line of business software on a server that it's already, in the cloud, then the cloud drive is a really good option. And this is the neat thing about it. Now you can harken back to your days when the old file servers that everybody had in their office.
Sure.
So that's effectively what our cloud drive is. It's a file server in the cloud. Mm-hmm. And you can set up the governance for that particular set of data so that people can have access to drives and sub drives in such a way that if they're in like a collaboration subdirectory and they're working on a specific file, if they're using it, it locks out all the other users, similar to the way the old file servers used to do. Mm. You just can't get that same kind of functionality with, say, a OneDrive or a Dropbox or Box or anything like that, or even Google Drive. So it's a really neat system. I think the last, 5 out of the last 7 cloud deals that I've done have just been specific for the TeamLogic IT Cloud Drive. I see that actually as a trend in what we're doing. And it's been a lot of fun because we're giving people some, at a really important time, we're giving people remote work capabilities. And we've had clients that are telling us that we're saving their company by what we're doing.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I do have an interesting success story that would be fun to talk about.
Yeah, please share.
So for whatever reason, about 25% of our client base is CPA firms. I don't know why that is. I just attribute it to the fact that CPAs are numbers people. They really understand the value proposition of what we're doing. And I had a client tell me last month that, he was just so grateful for what we were doing for him with cloud. And he saw his, when he got his bill and he approved it each month from us, which is, always a level set bill. Mm-hmm. He saw that as an investment that's directly attributing to his profit. So he didn't really see that as a cost center so much as an investment that he was making in his company. He's able to quantify that, again, being the CPA, he's able to do stuff like that with the numbers, but he looked at that and he was able to quantify the time savings that we're providing him, the ability for him to work remotely, not just in his several offices, of which he has more than one, but also to work on site at his clients. So he's the type of CPA that likes to go to his clients with his computer and work in their office with them. And the ability for him, as long as they give him Wi-Fi access or even hardwired access, it doesn't matter. But the ability for him to do that without having to walk in with 100 pounds worth of paper files under his arm,
right?
Has been, and I think that was the actual example that he used. He goes, I used to have to try to take my entire office with me, but I don't have to do that anymore. I can take everything with me with just my laptop that weighs less than 3 pounds.
Well, and the pandemic hit in mid-March, which was right in the middle of tax season. So this was for a CPA firm. Boy, what a time to realize the value of cloud computing, right? I mean, because all of a sudden, all these firms are at home and all these people are separated from each other and from clients, and to have that access secured is awesome, right?
He knew it, and he knew it going in, and we knew it going in. You know, when we realized that we were going to have the shelter-in-place rules come down the line from the governor in Georgia, we were expecting, and we were right. We got an onslaught of help desk tickets, and we just went into triage mode to get to everybody to set up the remote working capabilities. But John, this is an interesting thing that happened. And our client base is about half and half, cloud services and otherwise. And we did not get one single help desk ticket from the half of our client base that has cloud service solutions.
Wow.
Nobody, because they were already prepared. They already had made the investment. They were already all set up. Now, we did convert some of our non-cloud clients to cloud in the last few months. We've done some of that. And that's been a big help to them because they're, it's the unknown, right? Because here we are in Q3 of the dumpster fire of 2020. And it looks like it's possible that we may have another shelter in place or shutdown scenario. I know that, like I mentioned California, tried to go back, and then now they're back into their shelter in place rules, and who knows if we get to that in Georgia. So people are seeing that it's a wise investment to get that put in place.
Sure.
So, and it's an unfortunate thing, but who could have predicted this COVID situation?
Right.
And we were already in the trend, and we were already seeing that more and more of our opportunities were cloud centric, but this has really hammered it home.
Sure. Yeah. And that's an important point that you just made. It's not that the pandemic has brought this on. It's just, it's accelerated it. Yes, and made it clear that this is a trend worth taking advantage of for those small, medium-sized businesses that have not.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's, this has been great, Rick. I've learned a lot, and I think just wrapping up here, I think it'd be great if you could give everyone that's listening, if they want to be in touch, contact information. How do they get in touch with you and learn more, right?
So Team Logic IT, the best way to get in touch with me is my phone number, 770-847-9611. And I'm extension 1 at that number. There's an auto attendant that answers and tells you if you want to talk to Rick Higgins, hit extension 1. And I want to talk to everybody who's listening to this show. Email is rhiggins, that's RHIGGINS, at teamlogicit.com.
Rick Higgins has been our guest today, and next time he'll be back in the host chair here on IT Help Atlanta. But just a reminder that this show is brought to you by Team Logic IT, who is your managed services technology advisor. And they specialize in cybersecurity, cloud, and business continuity solutions. And Team Logic IT leverages cutting-edge technology to solve all types of business problems. So once again, I'm John Ray. Thanks again to Rick Higgins, our guest on this edition of IT Help Atlanta. Join us next time.